So for our summative, we are focusing on unemployment rate. So what is unemployment rate? Well, many understand intuitively that being unemployed means not having an occupation, and that unemployment occurs when people are without work and actively seeking to find a job. It is calculated as a percent by dividing the number of unemployed individuals by all individuals currently in the workforce. So during periods of recession, economies typically see a relatively high unemployment rate. It is important to research this topic because unemployment affects millions of people as well as a country's economy. So for our research question, it is there a problem with the unemployment rate?
So the X variable represents a range of years showing the increase and decrease of the unemployment rate within Canada from 1976 to 2015. The Y variable exemplifies the percentage of employment rate in Canada throughout a span of 40 years. This allows us to identify whether Canada has a high or low unemployment rate and if it has been increasing or decreasing. So this graph here shows the annual average unemployment rate in Canada, just like the summary on the previous slide. As you can see from the line of best fit right here, that throughout the years the unemployment rate has overall decreased as the years go by. Each peak that happens as the years pass is smaller than the previous peak, excluding the peak that happened in 2002, which was 7.7, and then the following peak in 2009, which was 8.3. So what we are looking at in the graph is right now Canada's unemployment rate is 7%. The lowest unemployment rate we've had in the past 40 years is 6% in 2007, which is only 1% lower than the current unemployment rate. The highest unemployment rate we've had in Canada in the past 40 years is a whopping 12% in 1983, which is twice as much as the lowest unemployment rate. So what does this mean? Basically what this data shows is that the Canadian unemployment rate is decreasing throughout the years. At 7%, the unemployment rate doesn't seem like it's very high. You certainly wouldn't want that mark on a test. But if we were to take Canada's average unemployment rate from the years of data we've analyzed, we would get 8.4. Since Canada's population is approximately 30.1 million as of July 2015, excluding the ages of 0 to 14 since they are not eligible to work, that would be about 2.5 million Canadians that are unemployed, which is a significantly high number.
So for our first interesting fact, it is, on average, the unemployment rate in Canada is 8.4% from 1976 to 2015. Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest unemployment rate of 16.1%. Saskatchewan with the lowest unemployment rate of 5.8% over the span of 40 years. So as you can see in the summary table, we have the years from 1976 to 2015, as well as Canada and its provinces and their unemployment rate. So as you can see, Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest unemployment rate, especially with 20% in 1994. And Saskatchewan has the lowest unemployment rate with 3.8% in 2014. Throughout the years, Canada and its provinces have fluctuated in unemployment rate. However, many continue to decrease or stay at a steady pace. So as you can see in this graph, it contains Canada and its provinces' unemployment rate throughout the years, and it gives us an understanding of like the trend and whether it's been increasing or decreasing. So as you can see, each province differs in unemployment rate and continue to follow a trend. This trend tends to be how almost each decade the unemployment rate seems to increase and dramatically decrease. This, especially during the years of Canada's recession in the 80s, as you can see here, you can clearly see that Newfoundland has a high unemployment rate compared to the rest of Canada. So, since Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest employment rate, we decided to compare to Saskatchewan with the lowest unemployment rate. And you can see Saskatchewan in blue and Newfoundland in gray. You can definitely see that there's a big and significant difference between the two in unemployment rate throughout the years. And this contains like the years and their unemployment rate. So Newfoundland and Labrador's unemployment rate average is over twice as much as Saskatchewan's average unemployment rate. Newfoundland and Labrador's lowest unemployment rate is 4.1% in 2013, and Saskatchewan's highest unemployment rate is 8.3%. So what we concluded from our data is that Newfoundland relies mainly on the agriculture sector of the labor force. This is because when winter comes, it freezes over crops and makes fishing difficult. Many people go unemployed for months, hence why their unemployment rate is so high throughout the years. When looking at Saskatchewan, it has a population of 1.3 million, which is considered very low compared to Ontario, which has a population of 13 million. With less people, there are more job opportunities. When looking at Newfoundland's population, it's 0.5 million. Therefore, there isn't a high demand for job occupations, therefore the jobs are more slim to none.
After analyzing and comparing two variable statistics, the fact that we were able to come up with was that the higher the literacy rate in a country, the lower the unemployment rate generally appears to be.
So this is our summary table. Our x variable is unemployment rate, our y variable is the literacy rate, and our z variable is countries. For our countries, we have a variety of different countries with different economies and populations.
This graph shows a moderately strong negative correlation between literacy rate and unemployment rate. This means that when the literacy rate increases, the unemployment rate decreases. This isn't the only cause of unemployment, however, it is definitely one of the factors that does affect the unemployment rate. As the literacy rate increases, the unemployment rate decreases and vice versa. The more educated a country is, the more opportunity for jobs. The less educated a country is, the less opportunities for jobs. We are able to clearly see this in our negative correlation. It is moderately strong and has a negative relationship.
Our z variable is countries. As you can see from this graph, in the more developed nations, they have a higher literacy rate. In war-torn places where people don't have as many human rights as they do in places like Canada, the literacy rate is much lower because of people don't have access to education. For example, Afghanistan compared to Canada, as you can see on our graph. So as you can see from this graph, when you compare unemployment rate in countries, developed countries tend to have a better economy, meaning a larger need for jobs, meaning they have a lower unemployment rate. In undeveloped countries, they tend to have a less stable economy, which can result in a higher unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate is directly affected by its region. You can tell this by Belize being an undeveloped country and having a higher unemployment rate, and Germany being a developed country and having a much lower unemployment rate. So what does this mean? It is proven that countries with a stable economy and proper education systems suffer from less unemployment. This data set included a few outliers, Canada being one of them, so it's important to take in consideration that Canada is ranked one of the most educated countries in the world. There are so many graduates each year, which makes it much harder to find jobs. So you need to take this as a factor of why this would be an outlier. It's not because they don't have a strong economy, but they have so many people graduating each year that jobs become harder to find.
What we can conclude from our data is that the literacy rate does have an effect on unemployment. This is proven by the negative correlation that is formed when comparing countries' unemployment rate and literacy rate. When we compare countries to one another, we are able to tell more developed economies apart from undeveloped or developing economies just by looking at either variables. Overall, we can conclude that the literacy rate does have a direct effect on a country's unemployment rate.
So what conclusion did all this information bring us to? Well, we know that compared to other developed countries, Canada's unemployment rate is moderately high. For example, Cuba has an unemployment rate of just 2.7 and is still considered a developing country. We also note that throughout the decades, Canada's unemployment rate has decreased. In the last 2 years, Canada's employment rate has stayed at 7%. We also know the literacy rate has a negative correlation with the unemployment rate. When the literacy rate increases, the unemployment rate decreases.